All right, everybody. If you are interested in SEO and how it works for your business, this is a podcast that's for you today. I'm excited to have Richard Waine on today. Richard runs a successful headshot and studio business in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I first met Richard through Peter Hurley's Headshot Crew, and we have become friends over the years. And Richard is one of the smartest guys I know when it comes to SEO and making your business profitable. I'm thrilled to have him on today. Richard, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast and a live video today.
Well, thanks for having me, John. It's good to see you, buddy. I haven't
Yeah.
seen you in a little bit of time here,
Yeah,
but
I mean, we got to
I'm
see each
happy to
other.
be
We
here.
had dinner at WPPI with a group
That
of
was really
friends and all that
cool.
stuff. That was
Yeah.
fun. It's always great catching up with you and all that stuff. But Richard, I had the opportunity to work with you a few years ago, and you kind of educated me personally one-on-one on doing some SEO stuff, and I was just like, man, I am not doing any of this right. And um, so you have learned a lot about this, and you've become not just an accomplished photographer, but you're a total badass when it comes to understanding websites and SEO. How did you learn all of this stuff?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. So I'll take it even further back. That when I got into the photography industry, I was just like everybody else. I didn't know what I didn't know. A couple of guys in the headshot crew were talking about their websites, and I didn't even have one. So I said I should probably get one of these. And at the time, they were talking about Squarespace. And I said, okay, well, this is pretty easy. It's drag and drop, right? I get this. This I can understand. Remember, I had zero background in websites at the time. So I decided at some point that I wanted to change my site up. But there was a specific look that I had in my head that I couldn't really manufacture using the Squarespace tools. So I said, I'm a reasonable fellow, and reasonable fellows are inquisitive, and we can go out and we can figure out how to make things happen. And so I literally started to learn HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and all the like by myself. I've never been tutored by any one person. I've never been to school for it. But I found that the deeper down that rabbit hole of design and code that I went, the more I realized that the job of a web designer and builder is not that far from search engine optimization. In other words, how can you possibly build a site and be like, yeah, I don't really need it to rank. I'm okay. It, it doesn't really work that way. The two are very much aligned.
Right.
And I never wanted to be the guy that said, "Okay, I've got this done, now go see somebody else." That's not necessarily to say that, there aren't specialties, and there should be, and SEO really is a specialty, but for me, I wanted to bring them together.
Right.
And so, my inquisitive nature just kept me going. It propelled me down more and more rabbit holes, and I just kept learning as I went. And I won't tell you that I know it all, but I've done a lot of my homework and a lot of research, and I've had a lot of success because of that. Knock on wood, a lot of knock on wood there. But you know, I'm grateful. I'm blessed, but that doesn't mean that's where the work stops. Because as you've probably heard me quote a million times before, websites, much like SEO, are a journey, not a destination.
Right. No, and it's interesting you talk because I actually had one of my questions on here was like how do you see, like, does it matter what kind of website you use, whether it be WordPress or a box website or something like that, that's like, you have the customization it sounds like you're doing, where like if you go with a Squarespace or something and like, like that, you don't have as much customization. So it's interesting that you started off with Squarespace and then you moved into doing kind of your own thing. I'm assuming WordPress, is that what you're using?
No,
Oh
no,
no,
believe
what
it
do
or
you?
not, I don't. So I actually use a lot of different builders for different purposes. So this is a fairly common question: which builder is better than the other? And I'll tell you outright, there's no such thing.
Nice.
Okay, for SEO purposes, there's no such thing. Okay. Some make it easier, some make it a little more difficult. You can still accomplish the same things in all builders. Otherwise, we wouldn't be possible. It wouldn't be possible to do it without a builder at all, but it is. So you can do the same things on Squarespace that you can do on Wix, that you can do on WordPress, and so on and so forth right down the line. However, where those tools are, that's a little bit different. So in other words, every website has a title, everyone has a description, every one of them uses header tags and alt tags and so on. So if they all have the same elements and every website has the same element, then technically you should be able to perform all of those things. So there is not one builder that's better than the other in terms of that.
It's a matter of how you're designing and building it on the back end. That's what I learned from you, and that's what I want to dive into a little bit with you
Sure.
in this whole thing because you know, one of the things that I learned talking to you that kind of dawned on me was just like you see all these people that I'm a website builder guru. Well, they might be a website builder guru, but what I have found, and maybe you find the same kind of thing, is website builder gurus are designing and putting together pretty websites. They're not doing SEO websites. And it's where you're saying like sometimes there's that differentiation and you have to be careful if you're going to go to the guru that's going to help build you a great website. Now there's questions if I were to ever do it again. There was questions that I would ask that I would have to have the right answers before I would move forward. It's not just about the prettiness of the website because that's not going to rank you.
Mm-hmm.
It's there's so many other things that play into it. One of the things that you taught me, and you put it in I felt very simple terms, and I think this is something that most people that have done anything with their website have no idea what it is. I always used to think, just like most people, like an H1 tag was a title, like it made it bold and big and everything, and that's where I was going to put bold things on my page. And H2 tags were where I was going to put smaller things on my page. And then H3 tags were this and that and all that stuff. Can you explain to the listener and the viewer that's watching right now, what is the difference between all those H1, H2, H3, and all that stuff? And why would I want to use them for certain things?
Sure. So what I would suggest is that for all the folks listening, watching, and including you, John, we're not going to leave you out of the conversation. When you think about your website, think about it like a book. Now, a book has a title. What's the title of your book? Right? That's your H1 tag. And notice that it's not going to be the name of your business, right? Your name of your business is not the title of your book. What is it that you do? Why should I care? So your H1 tag, in my case, where I'm a professional headshot photographer. I'm in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Professional Headshots Lancaster. That sounds like a pretty good title of a book. I've got my geography and I tell people what I do. Awesome. That is not a tagline. It's just an H1 tag. That is the title of the book.
Mhm.
Tagline is something totally different, and we could talk about that at another point. So, what else does a book have? Well, it has chapters beyond a title. What are those chapters? And now we're into H2s, which are more granular than an H1. So for our headshot audience, that might be your acting headshots or your corporate headshots. If you're a wedding photographer, you can find those niches perhaps that are within the overall category that are just slightly more granular. Then your H3s are more granular than your H2s. So for acting headshots, that could be theatrical and commercial headshots. For your corporate folks, that could be the website headshots, and it could also be employee headshots, office headshots, etc. So the more granular you go, well, that number goes up. So H1, 2, 3. I tend not to use 4, 5s, and 6s for ranking anything because I don't feel that they are as effective or efficient, although that's technically what they're there for. What I might suggest, however, is that you keep the number of these tags to something reasonable because the power of those tags gets diluted the more you use them. So, for each page, you should have one H1 tag and no more than that. For H2s and 3s, you can certainly go with a greater quantity, but I would be careful about how many you throw out there. Okay.
Right.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go for it. Go for it. Keep going.
The point that you were coming across before is, well, people scratching their heads about how they end up with bold text here and bold text there, and all of their header tags kind of get misaligned. And that's because when you go into these website builders, what you're likely to see is when you create a section or an area with text, there's a drop down there that says header tag 1, header tag 2, 3, body, paragraph, normal, whatever. And people go, this is how I'm going to get my text a little larger or a little more bold or change the style and the look. And I'll say that's not what it's there for. These are functional titles for the text that you're highlighting, not stylistic. So don't use those for style. That's something totally different, and that's meant in your design. That's something you'll use CSS for or another part of your page builder. But don't use those to designate what your text should look like, because it changes the function, and that's not what you want.
Yeah. So, and like that was the big misnomer like, and I'm sure anybody that's listening is probably doing the same thing. You like look at that for the prettiness of your site and you go H1.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a really bold. I want that to stick out. So I'll use an H1 here, but then you want this to stick out later on. And so you use
Mhm.
H1 twice. And now you've used like 3 H1 tags on
That's
your
right.
on your page, and then everything else is kind of secondary, and now you've just totally screwed everything up. So
That's right.
that was one of the biggest things that I learned, that like automatically just changes everything in your mindset of how you're using those things. Because I know I use WordPress, and if I was going to do something in bold, but I don't want to make it an H tag, I just make it a text tag. But then I can change the boldness to those same things that the H1, H2, H3 does, but they're not tagged now as one of those titles, subtitles, and paragraphs or whatever, right? So if you're
That's
listening,
correct.
that's probably the number one thing I want you to take out of this is make sure you're using your H tags correctly,
Right.
because it's a huge thing. And I guarantee you, if you're listening, and you've never talked to Richard or somebody that really knows SEO, you're probably not doing that right. That's probably the number one thing you're probably not doing correctly. So, definitely take a look at that and see how that is set up in your website. So what is like I probably said probably the number one thing, but what do you think is the number one thing that people have wrong on their website, that's like little to nothing that helps them and with nothing with SEO? Like what is the thing you find often that people have problems with?
I'm gonna start at the top of the site, and I'm not gonna tell you that it has any real function for search engine optimization, but one of the number one things that I find kind of from all ends of the photography spectrum where people end up screwing up their sites is that there's so many links in a navigation that I legitimately have no idea where you want me to go as a consumer.
Mm.
So this morning, before I jumped on, I was working with somebody on their website just to kind of give them a rough audit, a rough idea of the direction they should be going in. And I think I spotted about 6 or 7 links in the navigation alone. And I said, okay, so you've got a link for the page that I'm currently on. There's an about, there's a contact, there's a this and that. There are a couple of links for social media, and there's a rates. Where do you want me to go? What is it that you want your customer to do? Some of this content that you have in those various links could be built into the homepage itself. And those that can't be built into the homepage, those links could occupy some space in your footer underneath your website, right? So basically, declutter your header, keep it a little bit neater and cleaner. Keep only those links that are essential in the navigation, because otherwise I won't know what you want me to do. And I'm probably not going to choose you if you don't give me the information I want,
Mm-hmm.
because that's really what people are there for. They're not just there to look at pretty pictures. I have never seen somebody go surfing through the web, on a Google search and say, you know what, I think I'm just going to check out photographers today. Like that just doesn't normally happen. Other photographers do that, but that just doesn't happen. They specifically have a problem that they're looking to solve, and they're going to go look for those service providers that can solve those problems. So really, they have a purpose in mind. And the last thing that we should be doing is convoluting the issue by giving them so many different possible paths to follow. Just give them the information that they really want. Show them your work. Be a problem solver. Be direct with your messaging in your own voice and in your own way. but don't confuse them.
Right,
I
right.
think that's the number one issue I find is confusion.
And I find that like when I see people's websites, and I'm not the guru that you are, but I know what's right and what's wrong and different and all that kind of stuff. But one of the biggest things that I find, especially in the photographer world, is people will put like on their homepage picture after picture after picture. I got to show you my work. I got to show
Hmm.
you my work because that's what's important. That's what's going to get you to go here. But there's no like, so where do I go next? Your work is beautiful. I think it's amazing, but
Right.
there's no like button to go book a
Hmm.
session or contact us or, there's nothing. And so
Hmm.
it's just like, where are they supposed to go? And if you're one of those that's what your website is, when you come to the homepage and it's just a bunch of pictures and there's no navigation to going to learn more or book now or contact us or something where there's a call to action, so to
Hmm.
speak, then you need to go fix that right away because you're missing. It's
Oh
like
yeah.
people could be coming to your website going, "Oh my God, this person's website is beautiful and they have beautiful work," but they have nobody is going to work to find out how to get to you. You have to
Hmm.
put it right in front of them, right front and center. And the other thing too is make sure when you're doing this, and I'm sure Richard would attest to this, whatever you're doing on your website, and this isn't SEO, this is just design, make sure that it looks good, not just on desktop, because we usually design it on our desktop, but we never look at it on our phone because most people are going to look at your website probably on their phone because we don't sit in front of a desktop all
I'm
day long.
actually going to go one further and tell you that you should design it on mobile and then design it on desktop and then lay out what your mobile looks like first. And as you expand the screen, then your desktop comes up. It's called mobile first design, and
Okay.
that's actually favored by Google and others. So just something to be aware of. But I agree with you wholeheartedly. Mobile responsiveness is a big issue. I think that that's where you will run into one of the points you just made a moment ago about having an infinite scroll of images. Well, if all you really want to do is show me all your images, which I love looking at beautiful images. But on mobile, all those images get stacked one
Yeah.
after another. It just becomes one big infinite scroll. And now I, as the consumer, have no information, no way to get information, and I'm stuck in an infinite scroll of images.
Right.
Not
Right.
exactly not a good impression on a mobile,
Well, and the
right?
thing is like when it's on a desktop too, having let's say 8 images in a
Hmm.
gallery or something as like part of your stuff doesn't look so bad. But then if you
Hmm.
keep that same gallery and go into a mobile, now it's
Hmm.
8 images back to back to back to back, and you just
Correct.
gotta like you've got to scroll 8 times before you probably get to any kind of verbiage or call to action and all that stuff.
Right.
So definitely something that you need to take into consideration. And my take on it too, and maybe you would disagree. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. But my take on it is people came to your website for a reason. And especially with what I do a lot of Facebook advertising and all that stuff. And that image that I already did from advertising and stuff is what drew them in the first place. So
Hmm.
yes, it's important as photographers to show imagery because that's what they're coming for. But the biggest and the number one thing is to get them to respond, and it's not to
Hmm.
continue to show them images. Now they're on your website, now it's give them information, get them to respond, not keep
Right.
showing them more and more and more images because they picked you for a reason. Now they want to know what you're offering and how you're offering it, what your pricing is, what your those type of things are, because that's what's going to differentiate them anymore. Is that correct?
I think that there's some truth there, and I think that we can certainly take it a little bit further than that in saying there's a time and place to show your work. Of course, when you get to a photographer's website, you expect to see images, and I certainly would too. So you should use some space, perhaps in your top third of your website for showcasing a couple of your images for sure. As you start layering in content, then you should certainly use more images to reinforce the content that you're putting out, right?
Hmm.
And we could talk about one of the strategies I use that I actually learned from another headshot crew colleague. So it's actually quite an ingenious technique, but he calls it a trifecta. I'll credit Mike Schacht for this, but it really is fantastic. And I've been using it for years with great success. And it's really simple that I'm going to talk about a particular topic. Let's just say, for argument's sake, it's acting headshots. So my H2 will be acting headshots for my location, and I'm going to talk about that through the lens of expertise, experience, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness, which is exactly something that Google wants. And they use that terminology. The acronym is EEAT, and they want your content to be filtered through that. Basically, what do you know? And why should we trust you? What is your credibility? Basically. So you'll have your header tag, you'll have your content, you'll have that header tag within the body content. So you'll have the title acting headshots, and then in the content, you'll use words like actor headshots, just kind of talking organically. But then you'll use a picture to reinforce the entire thing. This is an acting headshot or an actor headshot. In the alt tag, the alt text, which we can talk about as well, very quickly, alt text was designed to be words for visually impaired. For those that were visually impaired, it's a descriptor text of what's going to appear on screen. There are people with visual impairments that use web browsers. They use something called the screen reader. So the screen reader will tell them exactly what they're looking at. Okay. But what also happens using that alt text is Google categorizes your images that way, and it indexes your stuff. So if you've got an acting headshot, it's going to say, oh, that's an acting headshot. Cool. So you have an opportunity to better optimize those alt tags. And so the trifecta is your header tag, the mention in the copy, and the picture. But then we'll throw in the alt text to go with it. So you've got a wonderful trifecta right there that reinforces that you know what you're talking about and you're an expert on the topic. But that only really comes across if your content is written that way. It can't just be willy-nilly throwing these elements around and call yourself an expert. You actually have to sound like you know what you're talking about. But so the point is, yes, use your images to reinforce the point, but use them strategically and judiciously. We're not just throwing images up for the sake of having a beautiful portfolio image, portfolio website.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah, no, totally, totally.
Okay.
Totally. So I want to change gears a little bit and talk
Mhm.
about copy, because I know copy plays into SEO and stuff like that too. So how much does copy play into it? And what are some of the things that we should be looking at when we're putting our copy into our website?
Okay. The first thing that I will say is at the end of 2022, Google released the helpful content update. Now, anytime I mention Google, in this case, it's specifically about Google, but largely I use Google as a proxy for other search engines because this kind of follow the leader in this market. Anyway, Google released the helpful content update. They singularly did. And what that helpful content update stated was that they're going to use artificial intelligence to crawl a section of one of your pages, the one entire page of your site, and or your entire site. And it's looking for content that they deem as helpful and useful to human beings. I'll say that just one more time because I find that to be a little bit weird, that they're going to leverage artificial intelligence to determine if your content is helpful and useful to human beings. That's an interesting one. Basically, what they've realized is that people can game the system. If you have any sort of technical prowess, it's relatively easy to rank a site. But it doesn't mean that what you're putting out is helpful and useful to human beings. And so user experience and relevant content is really important to Google. To Google, relevance is the sexiest word in their vernacular. So you need to have really good content. That being said, as we go through the copy, right, it's less about what can I use for keywording, even though that's still important, and more about how you can help another person. What information are you putting on your website that's helpful to a client? When they arrive at your site, are they just going to bounce because, in other words, jump off of your website because you're not producing the information they need? So content is really important here. Helpful content is important. Truth is, nobody knows what's really helpful until we start seeing it, right? So you're going to have to pay attention to some analytics there. What I do not recommend is leveraging artificial intelligence like ChatGPT or, Bard and Gemini for any of those purposes. And here's why. If you just need to develop some content for your website and you go to an artificial intelligence large language model, well, what are they going to give you? Content that they've already learned from other people's content? So now you're half plagiarizing somebody else's content. You have no idea if it's actually accurate. You don't know where it comes from or whether or not there's any truth to it. So the better idea instead would be to leverage AI for an idea generator, and then you write the content yourself. That does save time. Okay. It's not going to save the time that just having AI to write it would do, but it will be a whole lot better quality. And I think that's the better idea here.
So with speaking of AI, because that was one of the things I wanted to touch on, because I know there's a lot of back and forth. I've seen some people say, you can use AI stuff to help generate content, and then you can not use it because you're going to get punished. And so
Mhm.
there's two different, I feel like, very wide sides of that spectrum, right? Of opinions with that. And I don't know how much of an opinion and versus fact, because you hear very reputable people saying it on both sides.
Mhm.
But when it comes to AI, I know I like what you said, using AI, and we do this in our own business where it's just like we use it for content creation ideas, not
Mhm.
necessarily the content creation. So, for example, give me 10 ideas for engaging families to do family photography. Well, I'm just
Mhm.
throwing that off the top of my head. And it gives you
Sure.
10 ideas, and you're like, oh, I like number two, and I like number four, and I like number five. So you do two, four, and five. But what people go wrong, and you would probably agree with this, is they'll say number two is um, getting photos of your family is the most important thing to do in their lives, or something like that. Like that maybe is one of the
Mhm.
topic ideas. They'll say make a blog post for topic number two, and then it writes the whole blog post, right? So
Mhm.
that is, I feel like, the direction you don't want to go down. Using step
Correct.
one is a good idea, then take that blog post number two that you chose, or whatever that topic is, write your own content. I'm not the best writer, and tell me, this is where I get confused if this is right or wrong. I'm not the best writer in the world. That's why I have my studio manager do all my writing. But anyway, but I'm not the best writer in the world. But what I would do in that aspect is I would take that content and write what I would write in my John Glazer brain, right? Is it wrong to then take that content, put it back into ChatGPT, Gemini, or whatever you're using, and say, clean this up, make it blah, 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 because now it's your content, but now it's kind of doing some revision for you. Is that right, or is that wrong?
I don't see anything wrong with that. I mean, that's why we have Grammarly, right? I
Correct.
mean,
Yeah. I
I,
mean,
I
yeah.
I don't
So
see
I know,
anything wrong.
I believe our studio manager does something along those lines, and then she puts
Yeah.
it in Grammarly and then does another revision of it. So then it's like this jumbled mess where it's not, hey, it's AI written, or
Right.
whatever.
Like everybody's a little different, right? Not everybody has, and forgive me for saying so, not everybody has fantastic command of the English language, right? They can't all write properly,
What you talking
which
about,
is
Willis?
which, it's really funny. I've always said that we are a bunch of creatives that can't actually create. We don't write creatively at all. In fact, I have found more plagiarism among photographers than any other profession ever. It's simple because what happens is people don't see writing as a money making activity for them. So for them, it's just a waste of time in some ways. And other cases, I think that we simply don't lend it enough time to have command of the English language. And I say that I don't mean just in conversation. I mean writing it, creative writing.
Right.
It's a pain point for sure. Now, what you're suggesting is taking content that you've written, and let's just make the assumption that the grammar is atrocious. Well, filtering it through an AI is certainly not going to be a bad idea. It is a large language model, but you do need to work your prompt so that it knows what to do, which is
Right.
clean up the grammar. And you can also tell it what kind of tone you're trying to achieve as well. And so the more specific you are with your prompt, the better. Now, of course, I'm not saying that everybody is deficient in the use of the English language, but if that's your pain point, do the best you can,
Right.
because there are tools out there that will help clean that up. You certainly don't want to be in a position where you are taking, in my estimation, the lazy way out, which is throwing a prompt at AI, taking all of that information, throwing it on your website, calling it good. Google literally redid their documentation saying that use of AI is not frowned upon, right? But it's kind of, in my eyes, it's kind of like speaking out of both sides of your mouth. Go ahead, use AI, but we also understand it's not unique content. I don't see that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So to me, it's a little bit strange and incongruous. So I'll simply say, create unique content, make it helpful, make it useful, and put your words through a large language model like ChatGPT or other AI to clean it up for grammar and to make it sound as you intend it to sound.
Well, and I'll take that a step further, and I'll be honest, we do this in our business. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. I assume I know what your answer is going to be, but I don't know. We will take that content that we write for a blog post, for example, or something, right? We have gone back in and put it into and to some kind of AI program like Gemini or Chat GPT and asked it to create alt tag headers for
Mhm.
the content. Is that a good practice or a bad practice to be doing?
It depends. So ChatGPT can't look at a website and say, okay, I
So
have
it's not looking
now.
at the website, it's looking at the content that I'm putting in. So like at that blog post that I made, I would copy and paste that blog post in. I would say create alt headers for
Uh-huh.
this and give me
I
the alt
understand.
header tags, and it will actually give me the tags and the headings and all that stuff based on the content.
I would still filter it out using your own head, because what's probably going to do is generate a list for you, and you'll have to use the ones that are more strategic for what you're trying to achieve. I certainly wouldn't use all of them, right?
Right.
That you could potentially have a paragraph of alt tags for a picture that
Right.
that may not be as beneficial to you as you might want it to be.
So I guess my question, have you ever done that before? Have you ever done?
No,
Okay,
no,
so we
I
have.
write all of them myself.
Okay, so we have, and what I do is like I've taken it and I've put it into like a Chat GPT and I say make alt tags. So it will actually rewrite, I mean not rewrite, it will take the content that I have and put headers in that like as it would be written in a blog post so I can copy and paste, and it'll say H1 this, H2 this,
Oh,
H3 this. It'll actually
okay.
tell you that.
Those aren't alt tags, John. Those are header tags,
I
buddy.
mean header tag, sorry. Forgive me, the listener. I'm not the guru that This
I'm
is why
sorry,
I
you threw
had
me for a
Richard
loop. I
on
was
here.
like,
This is why I had, sorry. Okay.
okay,
Great,
okay.
great,
I'm
great,
with you. I'm with
great
you.
correction. If you're listening and watching, there is a difference between alt tags and header tags, and I used the wrong verbiage. Make sure you're using the right verbiage with Richard because he will pick it apart.
Well, I didn't mean to
No,
put you
no,
on
no,
the
no, no.
spot
You're good.
there.
It's all good. It's all good. But if I was, but
Yes.
I did that for header tags, and so it would say header tag 1, header tag 2, header tag 3, and it would tell me where to put those things within the content, so that when I'm then putting it into my website, I put the right header tag, and I'm not putting H1 in my thing twice, 3 times, and H2s 20 times, and all that stuff.
I understand what you're saying. I winced a little bit because I'm not sure you're putting the horse before the cart. I feel like you're putting the cart before the horse here. And I'll explain what I mean. It sounds like you've written the content and you're trying to find a title for your content, but how do you know that that's the content that people are looking for?
Hmm.
And so the only way to do that that I know of is to do some keyword research and to figure out what topics people are actually trying to learn more about. And I actually have some really good techniques for that, which are a little bit more visual, but just the same, we're talking about creating titles for these paragraphs of information. Essentially, that's what these header tags are. Whereas you're saying, I've written content here, now find me titles. But how do you know that those are the titles that are actually being
Fair
searched
enough.
for? So I feel like you're putting the cart before the horse, rather. And instead, we should probably find the search terms that people are most likely looking for and building the content that is more helpful to them around that.
Okay, so then that leads into a great question in the sense of what tools are you using or what do you suggest of tools to find that, like those search word things, and how to
Sure.
create that? Because like I know I've driven into the realm of like I'm banging my head again. I don't know, and then how many are too many and how many are not enough, and like how do you balance that? And but where do I find that information and where do I get that? I know there's programs out there, but some are better than others with that kind of stuff. What would you recommend using for these things?
All right, so I'll tell you straight out, I have no shame in my game that if I don't have to pay for things, I don't wanna. All right?
There you go.
It's
Hey,
pretty
hey, we're
straightforward.
getting free advice and free content, like places to go from Richard
Yeah,
Wade.
right, like,
Oh, I think we
I think
lost.
you froze there, though. Oh, no, you're
Oh,
good,
we
you're
we
back.
both
You
froze
froze
there for
for
a second. Okay,
just
cool.
for a split second
Yeah.
there. Yeah, so basically, if I don't have to pay for things I don't want to, right? And that's a really big statement because you can get into software that will help you with all of this stuff on many levels and much more granular detail, but it costs you about $100 a month, right? Now, I mean, I'll be honest, right? While I do make a living doing this, I also make a living doing headshot photography. So it's probably more useful to somebody like me who actually uses it to make money. If this is not who you are and you're just a photographer trying to better your own website, please don't go spend $100 a month on that. You're going to drain your bank account and you're not going to understand the data any more than you did beforehand. So I would take that kind of stuff out of the way. But what I'm going to suggest involves a little bit of elbow grease. Okay. First, you're going to get information if you just go into Google itself. And if you were to type in your core niche, so John, you're in pet photography. I know you do
Mhm.
some of that in your studio.
Just a little.
So just a little bit, right? So if you start Googling pet photography, pet photographers do it geographically, even in other geographies, you're going to see a whole bunch of listings in the SERPs. The SERPs are search engine results pages. And read some of that. Some of those words are in bold for a reason. Also, look at how those accordions unfold that say people also ask. Those are interesting because you're just kind of arming yourself. You're taking it all in, you're making notes, you're trying to figure out what's being targeted and why it is where it is.
Mhm.
Okay? That's just for starters. Look all the way at the bottom of that Google search page, and you're going to find some other words in bold. Also a good place to look. Now, I'm not saying that those particular search terms are destined for your website. Just don't overlook them, right? Just don't glance over them. Like take them on board. Other places to find keywords. I'm a proponent of using and I'll be honest, I do not run Google ads, not a single one. I've
Which is
never run a
amazing to me that you're doing what you do all off of SEO and word of
oh yeah.
mouth and all that stuff. I mean, and that's a testament to like you have figured this out. So
I
bravo
appreciate
to
that.
you, my friend.
There's a reason I did, but I appreciate that, my friend. I really do. What I'd say is that if you're in a larger market, for instance, like a major metropolitan city, you're going to have to find a way to play in the ad space. I never needed to based on where I am and the areas that I service. However, the downside to that is that I've also had to service a much larger footprint than most others because of my location, my geography. It's not a major metropolitan area. I'm an hour and a half from the largest city in the area, which is Philadelphia, another hour and a half to Baltimore. I'm kind of in that central Pennsylvania area where there's no real big city. So I've expanded my footprint and it has allowed me to avoid having to spend on ads. However, all things being equal, Google's keyword planner is a really great place to start, right? And I know that you know a little bit about that because I know you run some ads, but
Mhm.
Google Keyword Planner, you can certainly dive into some details about, what the search volume is like and what kind of search terms you're trying to get a grip on. It's a good research tool. But again, it's nothing but research until you implement it.
Right.
Another great place, and I think it's overlooked quite a bit, is Google Search Console. And so I'm going to try to describe this in an easy way, and I know that people are going to have questions about it, so we can certainly do a quick demo at another point. But Google Search Console is where it is a Google property that takes in your information from your website and assimilating that information. You're learning how your website is being used, what its performance is like, what kind of issues you might have on your site, and it's a little bit more granular detail than you would ordinarily have. On the performance tab of Google Search Console, right, you'll have all sorts of metrics. There's like 4 different metrics. Mostly you'll have 2 that are checked and 2 that are not. Those 4 should be checked, and then you're going to change your date range to 12 months. Hit the export at the top right, I think, of the screen, and export that to a Google Sheet. What you're getting at this point are your click-through rates and your impressions and a list of keywords that people have actually come across in relation to your site. So we're going to take all of those columns of information and we're going to sort, and you're going to sort them from, I think, highest to lowest, so Z to A, and you're going to use the impressions as the category that gets sorted. So in other words, we want to see the keywords and the search terms that are highest with impressions and lowest click-through rate.
Hmm.
In other words, if something, let's say, ranks top 5, right? Let's just make a search term, glazer pet photographer, right? And it lots of impressions, but you rank like top 5. Well, I'm not going to care too much about that because that's doing pretty well. But let's just make the assumption I've got, I don't know, something a little bit more obscure, like let's just say senior portraits, right? Optimized on your site, let's just say. And you've got a lot of impressions, but maybe the ranking is like 60 or 90 or something like that. Well, that just presents an opportunity there. You just need to do a little bit of work for that search term, right? So that's the kind of stuff I'm looking for. I'm looking for those keywords or search terms that are making impressions. In other words, people are coming across them somehow, some way. They're possibly even searching for them. You just don't rank very well for them.
Hmm.
And I'm taking those opportunities and I'm actually going to flesh them out a little bit and bolster that click-through rate to the best of our ability. That's something I would absolutely suggest doing. I think that's totally worth the time. One of the questions from one of the Facebook chat comments was a list of things to do on a daily or weekly basis. And I know we'll probably end up talking about that a little bit more, but I did take that on board and I was thinking, well, what's something I do every day? And I really do spend every single day in my Google business profile, every single day. And it's not just to take on the statistics and understand them, but to actually push my own reputation a little bit further. It's very local, right? And because it's so local, and I know that that is tied to my site in some ways, only some. And in some ways, the Search Console is tied to that too. So these are all Google properties under the big umbrella, and everything affects everything else. And so, how is it that I'm going to get my name out there a little bit further for when somebody Googles a headshot photographer in my area? Well, of course, I'm going to improve my reputation with my reviews. That should go without saying. I hope you're doing that because the quantity of your reviews and the quality of the reviews are also ranking signals. So the higher that number goes, the better. You want to keep it in the 4 or 5-star categories. If you can, keep it up higher than that, higher than 4, 5-star. That's certainly helpful. So I focus there, but also I'm showing activity to Google and to my would-be audience here by posting a picture Monday through Friday. And while I'm a Jewish guy, I don't take off at the Sabbath. I just choose not to do anything on Saturday or Sunday. Monday through Friday, I post a picture. But on Monday, and it's a unique picture. That's very important. Unique, because Google doesn't want you to spam it with duplicates.
Mm.
So don't use something you've already used. If you use a picture, put it in a folder and never to be retrieved for Google's purposes. On Mondays also, I also write an update post. So you can certainly do that and use another unique picture. Now, I know I get this question a lot, which is, well, won't you run out of pictures? And my response is, you're a photographer. Go make more.
But you should have a plethora of pictures.
Well, if you've been at it for some time, I would hope you've got a library of images. But even if you haven't, you're still a photographer. You wield a camera, pick it up, go shoot something. Right?
Right.
I think that's the big thing, is that we are content creators in many ways. And the idea is to remove the hat that says I'm a photographer and start putting on the hat that says I'm a businessman. And in order for people to know what I do and how I do it, I need to showcase it.
Right. So with the content creation in Google and stuff like that, and I know that as funny as this is, and it's like people listening are probably going, why are we talking about Google? Uh, Google My Business when we're talking about SEO. But correct me if I'm wrong, they're one and the same, and they kind of match up together. And if you're doing one and not the other, like Google kind of goes, how legit is your business? Is that correct?
Kind of. So Google has a lot of properties, a lot of entities under their umbrella. Okay. When people use the word Google, it's kind of like using the word Kleenex, but you really mean to say tissue, right? It's kind of like that.
Right, right, right.
So Google owns a lot of properties. Google Business Profile is an entity under the Google umbrella. Google Search is an entity under the umbrella. Okay. Google Workspace is an entity under the umbrella. They all interplay with each other because Google loves to keep us within their own ecosystem. But that doesn't necessarily mean that one has more to do with the other, right? If you think about where your website is positioned, right, in relationship to all these entities, they all kind of feed back and forth to it,
Mm.
right? In some ways, we'll use Google Workspace either through email or Sheets or whatever have you. Well, there's definitely a connection there, and there's definitely a connection with Google's um, Google Business Profile and then the Google Search. So the website is kind of the common denominator here. That doesn't mean that Google Business Profile and Google Search are working together, even though there are elements that are easily read. In other words, here's the bridge between Google Business Profile and Google Search is Google Maps.
Mm.
That's the bridge,
Mm-hmm.
because your listing for your Google Business Profile can only be accessed in two ways that I know of at this point. One is through Google Search by typing in the name of your business, right? So I would do Richard space Waine space photography, and boom, here I am. There's my Google Business Profile. And it's also accessible through Maps.
Mm.
There is no standalone app any longer.
Yeah, it used to
So
be its own thing, and now it's through Maps or whatever
that's
when you do
right.
it. Mm-hmm.
And Google experienced plenty of issues in that migration
You can
too.
still type Google My Business and something will come up, but it'll direct you to your Google
Yeah.
My Business page through like Maps and all that stuff. So
Yeah, they have all those redirects set up, but ultimately those are the only two access points that I even know about any longer.
mm,
So yes, the bridge is Google Maps, which is a proximity thing if you think about it for search.
mm,
Everything is proximity related for Google Business Profile. But you still need to be kind of out front with what you do, how you do it. You need to be active. There's lots of different elements here. There's no real keywording per se, but I will tell you this. Under your business categories, you should have more than one business category listed.
mm.
Your primary category, if you are a photographer, should be photographer, right? There shouldn't be any mystery about that. But if you are like me, a headshot photographer, for instance, you're going to want to select a couple of other categories like portrait studio, like photography service, like photography studio, right? That's like leaving free money on the table and walking away from it if you choose not to leverage other business categories. You can leverage up to 10 categories, so why not? Of course, if it's not listed, don't go making them up willy-nilly. But if you go back into your dashboard and you find these categories yet again, Google will actually make other suggestions for other services that you provide underneath those categories. And you should certainly take them up on their suggestions if that's something that you do. Sometimes, if you're like, for instance, a photography studio, and under that general category, they may have things like weddings and let's just say, engagements and bar mitzvahs and quinceañeras, like the event type of stuff, right? Whatever that looks like. But you don't do any of that. Well, don't do it. Don't click on it, right? But if that's something you do, definitely add that, because who wouldn't want more money coming into them?
Right. No, totally, totally.
So you're
Uh,
not going to have that opportunity to optimize for terms, but you should select the ones that are applicable to you.
right. And then like how does like I've heard this too, and this is probably something that people have that question. How does YouTube play into that? Because I hear people saying a lot. If you need to create more video content because it will help boost your overall thing, and it's part of that umbrella like you're talking about
Mhm.
of Google.
It
How does
is.
that play into this whole thing?
Well, surprise, surprise, Google search is not the world's strongest search engine. YouTube is.
Oh
And
wow.
if you it really is, yeah. It's powerful. If you ever wanted to learn something, you probably went to YouTube to learn it. I know I've done it,
That's how
and
I
I
became a
continue to do it.
photographer.
There you go. Honestly, I think
I
I
don't
think
have a
that's all
degree in
of
it. I have a
us.
YouTube degree and a Scott Kelby subscription degree.
Well, you know what? You and I are not that different, sir, because that's really where I started. I mean, that's where I found Peter Hurley to begin with, was on
Peter
YouTube.
So I found Peter Hurley through uh, my brother-in-law, but then did some searching and stuff and found him on YouTube. But then got introduced to Scott Kelby because of Peter
Mhm.
Hurley, and everything. And so I learned through those aspects of different things about lighting, about how to work with people, and all that kind of stuff. And I went to the things that I went, but a lot of it was like, oh crap, how do I do this? And I went to YouTube. How do you
Right.
do that? Like I remember Flurn. When I was
Yeah,
first starting
Aaron
out, I was
Nace.
on
I love
Flurn
Aaron.
all the time.
Aaron's incredible teacher,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
Flurn is like
So,
amazing, and he puts it all out there. It's
yeah,
like great. But it's YouTube, YouTube, YouTube. So it makes sense what you're saying.
it
It's just like
does.
having that kind of content on YouTube. So what I hear you saying is if you're in business, you need to be creating some kind of video content. Does it matter how fancy that video content is?
No. I'm going to tell you straight up, John, I am the world's worst videographer. Like, I don't think that there's a single human being that could come close to the amount of failure I've had taking video. But what I will tell you is that it's not about your production quality. It's a matter of doing something. Okay.
Just having
Take
something there.
one, yeah, do something, right? You're not going to be good at it if you're doing it for the first time. Lord knows I'm not. But you do one thing and you get a little bit of muscle underneath you and you do it again and your work gets better over time. And a
That's
great
how I
example
started
of that.
this
Yeah.
whole thing. Like
Yeah.
the podcast was like I read a book and the guy said if you want to do like education or podcasts or something, and it started with a daily vlog. I don't know if anybody that has followed me a while had this daily vlog, and I didn't keep up with it because it was daily. It was like, but he
Mhm.
said, do it for 5 minutes a day. Right. And
Mhm.
talk about whatever. And you're gonna start. It's like he equated it to a comedian. Comedians go up with 10 different jokes. When three of them land, they get rid of the seven and then they go and find, they do the same three again and then they
Mhm.
find seven new jokes and then two of those land and then they do five. But it's like that's where you start getting your voice is that five thing and then how many clicks. So then I was starting to see, oh wow, there's a lot of clicks on this one. So that's something that people
Right.
think is really important. And I do the same thing with podcasts. Like, oh, there's a lot of clicks in this kind of interest. So I need to go find
Right.
more people that are interested in that with the podcast. But it's the same thing. It's the same
Yes.
concept of just start somewhere and you
Mhm.
never know where it's going to go and you'll start to get your comfort level. I don't care how uncomfortable you are in front of a microphone or in camera or whatever. You have
Mhm.
to start somewhere and 5 minutes is better than no minutes.
Absolutely. Yeah, a great example of this. I remember when Pete Coco started doing his video work. And I remember that the beginnings were not exactly smooth running for him, but his work, the video work, the production quality has gotten significantly better. He does a beautiful job on camera. He's exceptionally articulate. He does a really good job, which didn't come from nowhere. He had to work at it. And so I'm not so worried about production quality. Get something out there, put out content, once again, that is both helpful and useful to other human beings. I might even suggest going as far as to say be slightly more entertaining.
Right.
And the reason why is because, if you think about infotainment, that's really the business that we're in, is infotainment, right? You're not really going to secure tons of clients just on a video, but your expertise and your credibility and your authority will come through over a period of time.
Yeah.
What I might suggest, if there's anything that I can suggest regarding video, which in my limited knowledge is not much, I admit, just have really good audio,
Mm.
right? I
And you
think
can
that's
do
the
it.
key to
I'm
really.
showing it right here. I have this little device that clicks to my phone, and I put it on my lapel. It cost me maybe $100. I don't even remember,
There
but
you go.
it's perfect, and it just
Yeah.
plugs into a little USB to recharge, and it's great.
It doesn't take much to do something like that. I mean, I've got different audio equipment for other stuff, but I think that's the key to really good video personally. Just the same, YouTube is a really strong search engine. I don't think you should overlook it. You have an opportunity to put plenty of verbiage in the descriptions and the titles, and just make sure that you're captivating your audiences, because ultimately that's what's going to keep people coming back.
No, it's such a good, like, I mean, as you guys are hearing this, there's so much that goes on to SEO. My last question that I want to ask you, and I feel like this is like one of the bigger questions that most people that are going through this have. I guess there's two questions I want to ask you, right?
Mhm.
One is, would it be what should people be proficient in SEO and learn how to be proficient in SEO, or is it better to hire somebody to do the SEO work and help you with the SEO work instead of you doing all the, because like I'm sure there's others that are on here, and there's things that you and I have talked about, and we've talked about these things before, that are just like, oh my God, in my mind I'm going, I need to do some updates and
Mhm.
some fixes to my website and stuff, and I don't have the time, and I don't have the energy, and I don't have the whatever, and I can make a bunch of excuses. But I've learned from you also, it's taking bits and pieces at a time and doing something daily. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean sitting down for an 8 hour day and just doing nothing but SEO, but if you do like, 10-15 minutes of, I'll do this page today and clean it up, I'll
Yeah.
do this page this today and clean it up, I'll clean this item up, I'll clean up all my h tags, like
Mhm.
today, um so you can take it in bits and pieces, but what would you recommend? Somebody becoming proficient in SEO, or getting somebody that work with your SEO on your website? Like what are the pros and cons there?
So I once again, I'll kind of circle back to what I said earlier, which is if I don't have to pay somebody to do something, I'm not going to.
Right.
And I don't often recommend that people do that for a few reasons. So when I build websites for photographers, and you know this, John, I will only work with photographers only because it's an industry I know well,
Right.
right? And so when I do this kind of work for photographers, the one thing I tell them outright is that at the conclusion, when I'm done with the project, I'm going to go through your site with you and teach you how to use it. And the reason why I do it that way is because I don't believe in becoming a webmaster. It will
Mm-hmm.
take me an inordinate amount of time to look after your site.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You'll hit me up every once in a blue moon asking for a specific change. And for that, I'm going to charge you a monthly fee,
Mm-hmm.
which will make you very cash poor, and
Right. Right.
me just render my time kind of
And that's a
like.
whole other podcast, by the way, with Richard. He's very good in profitability in your business.
We could talk about
Yeah,
that.
yeah, no, no, we'll talk
Uh,
about that another day.
yeah, for sure. So at the end of the day, I think it's a very expensive thing to go out to somebody and say, "Here, do steal my website, be a webmaster." Right? I just think that's an expensive proposition for small businesses, and I don't necessarily think that that's where we should be kind of focusing our money.
Mm.
However, you should have some form of foundation for your website. In other words, you should know how to operate it. You should know what should and can be changed and how to do that. Nobody can make the corrections to your site like you want them made unless you do it yourself.
Mm.
Right? You could be very specific with a web designer or a builder or a developer of any sort. You could say, this is what I want, but then you are still going to have to inspect what you expect,
Mm.
which is kind of like, yeah, well, why am I having you do it? I might as well do it myself, save myself a little bit of money.
Mm.
The downside here is there's a little bit of learning curve.
Mm.
But if you can get over that and just understand the basics of what needs to be where and how you accomplish that, then web development doesn't have to be that difficult. SEO doesn't have to be that difficult. But as you said very well, John, 1% better every day. Just take a little bit off, right? Rome wasn't built in a day, and your website won't be either.
Right.
Okay. I'm a real firm believer in that 1% better every day. Yes, there are elements of my own website that I really need to get back to. And the thing is that there is nobody else to do it other than me.
Mm.
So I'll just have to kind of deal with that in my time. But it shouldn't be as difficult. And if you are running up against specific SEO related issues, there are plenty of resources out there. Whether or not you can understand them is another story, but there are plenty of resources on how to deal with it. So I do recommend that people learn it.
No,
I really
I
do.
would agree with you. And I was doing it for a while, and then things got really busy with some different things within my business, just like anybody else's business.
Yeah.
And I got away from it where I was doing that 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes a day where I was going and doing stuff. And then I've let some things go awry in my website,
Hmm.
to be honest, and it needs to be cleaned up. Now, that doesn't mean my website's not performing on some level, but it's just not
Hmm.
doing what it should be doing completely, right? And so I need to go and clean that up, just like I think anybody else. But the encouraging thing is like what you're saying, take one piece at a time, you know.
Hmm.
And what I found personally, and I know everybody's different, everybody's personality is different, but hiring a time of an hour with Richard Waine or somebody like that's like you, that can go through these things with you and then kind of give you ideas. And I'm sure we gave you some ideas just listening to this podcast today, but of giving you ideas of, okay, do this, do this, do this. And remember, it's a marathon, not a race, and you
Right.
can do it over time, and if you're sitting there watching your ranking is not going to jump from 100 to 1 overnight. Like, oh, I did something on my website. You gotta like remember, it's going to take some time to get these things going. It's
Hmm.
going to take some time for you to do those updates, but I will agree with Richard, it's really beneficial to you to learn what that is and tweak it as you go, and make it better as you go, than to pour money, because website people are expensive,
Hmm.
expensive. And you can go to those people and spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for them to do stuff, and then as soon as they're done with it, you go, oh, I'm going to go change all my pictures on this page. Well, now you've just messed up everything that they just did for you, and you spent thousands of dollars on, if you don't know what you're doing, updating those pictures on that page. You know what
That's
I'm
right.
saying?
Absolutely. I think it's important also to mention, John, that we should always be A/B testing things. If I put this up, what are the results on, let's just say it's a picture, right? I put this picture up. I have no idea what those results are automatically going to be. Let me try it for a period of time. Let me try this bit of content for a period of time. If I have success and traction, we'll roll with it for a little bit. If I need to change it, I have an opportunity to change things up. A/B testing is very important. Um, again, this is a long game, a
Yep,
very very long game, and I
totally.
think that there are certainly things that we can do over a period of time to get us where we're going, but I don't really think that you're going to get there overnight, and I think that expectations should be tailored accordingly. As you said, we're not going to rank number one overnight. This is a really big point that I wanted to bring up, even before we got on. There are only three things that move the rankings in the search engine results: what you do to your own content, in other words, how you manipulate your own optimizable content; what your competitors do, how they optimize their own content; and then what Google decides to do. And when they decide to do things, it's all bets are off because they've made up their mind, and that's the end of that. Um, so, and that's not to say that they probably haven't solicited feedback, but let's be honest, they are some really brilliant minds over there. So there's a reason for everything they're doing. But what they are doing will ultimately change the configuration of the rankings, etc. So what does that mean when and I cannot remember. I apologize. The
You're
person that
good.
did ask the question about the daily or
Yeah,
weekly
Fong,
activities.
she asked. I was going to ask you that question because this all leads
Yeah.
into what you're saying. What is the
Yeah.
key habits one should be doing weekly to improve your SEO?
Okay. So here's the thing is that you have no idea what has changed or when it's changed. Okay. So I would not spend inordinate amount of time trying to figure that out, but you should at least be aware of what your analytics tell you, what your bounce rates are. Okay. And for the record, to the best of my knowledge, bounce rate is not a ranking signal, but rather the relevance of the content and how long people spend on that content will give other indicators to Google about the value of the content. So it's not like people get on your website and they jump off and Google says, people have no idea what's on here. We're going to demote this website. That's not how that works. What they're basically saying is that the longer somebody or people spend on the content, is that it's going to weigh the rankings a little differently, a little bit more in your favor based on how much time they spend on it and how valuable they find it. So that being said, is that you need to focus on just creating really good content for your demographics. Okay, that's real big. Good, helpful, relevant content will get you where you want to go a lot faster than trying to game the system. The system was reconfigured because people are gaming it. So they came up with other ways. You can monitor your competitors. Okay. There are certainly ways to do that. But what you're really trying to do is figure out what they're doing and then do it better than them.
That's with
Now,
anything in business, though.
of course, but the truth is that nobody knows what that is. And you know what, for years, and I hate to stick a feather in my own cap, but they do say that you know, imitation is the most sincere form of flattery. But for years, people get on and off my website like it's going out of style. And I know that they're photographers, and every one of them are looking to figure out what it is I've done or how I've done it. But very few of them will pick up the phone and ask me the question, even though I offer the information. I'm like, here, I'll just tell you.
Yeah.
Right.
And as you guys can
Uh,
see, Richard is he's a pretty open book, and like when you sit down and you spend some time with him, he will explain. And what I like and appreciate about you is you put it in terms that make sense. Like I see a lot of people get too technical with the terms and the explanation and all that stuff, and you're like, it's over my head. I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
what good, John, is any information if you
Oh, I
can't
get it, but there's
understand it?
plenty of
Right.
people that don't, it's like it's over your head and you're like, I'm clueless. So I'm propping you up in the sense of like if you worked with Richard and you did want to get help with your SEO and stuff like that, Richard will not only give you practical things to do with your website, but he will also give you it, explain it to you in terms that you can understand. Kind of like
Yeah.
the H tags that we talked about at the beginning and
Yeah.
talking about that as a book. That's why I started with that because I was so like I was writing notes when you and I met, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, that makes sense. Okay, that makes sense. It's the title, the chapter, the verse,
Yeah.
or the paragraph, and
Right.
but you put it in a way that makes sense for the lay person that's like going into SEO and it feels so overwhelming. So the last question here is
Yeah.
it is from the same person, Fong. She asked, "What?" And I think we kind of answered this question earlier on, but
Okay.
what do you recommend best for SEO? Is there something that's better than another? Like if somebody's
In
just
terms
trying to
of,
get started. I don't know exactly what she means. I don't know if it's like doing search terms or like if you were paying for something or
okay.
whatever, or kind of monitoring your stuff, or if it's like what's better for your website. Let's take
Okay.
that because we already answered the other one, and I know we
Hmm.
touched on the website side of things when it comes to SEO. Is there a better platform for the person that's like really getting into this fresh and new? Because I know some platforms are more difficult than others. Where would you go if you were starting and you had no knowledge?
Okay, so just so for my clarity, are we talking about where would I build a website if I
Yeah,
had no
that was going to
knowledge?
be helpful to be SEO friendly and get you going and all that stuff.
All right. So because I really don't believe that any platform has stronger SEO capabilities or signals than any other, I will always err on the side of simplicity
Mm,
because I also don't necessarily believe that everybody comes out of the womb knowing how to design a website or figure out how to build it. So the easier thing to do for you is probably something like a drag and drop editor. I know that Wix has come a long way, but I'm still a Squarespace proponent. That being said, okay, and I will qualify this. Squarespace has a long way to go before they can make me very happy man. And the reason why is because they believe in loading their websites with lots and lots of code. If you don't know what it is or how it functions, you're fine. But on the back end of things, they basically load a lot of stuff just in case you need it. But if you don't actually employ it, it's still loading anyway.
mm,
And that has some weight to the website. And I just wish they would get rid of that stuff. But they are very easy to use and it's easy to develop a really beautiful website and it has all of the capabilities you would expect of something for a photographer for search engine optimization. As I said, I know Wix has come a long way. I've not yet fiddled with their platform. I know for a fact that WordPress is an exceptionally robust program, both for search engine optimization, for designing websites, but the learning curve is exceptionally steep and there are way more security threats because most of the stuff functions on plugins, which are third party developed. In other words, most people have no idea where they're coming from or what other vulnerabilities they have. It's possible that you end up with a totally hacked website.
mm, mhm.
And then on top of that, you need other resources like CDN, which is a content delivery network, a way in which your assets like your pictures and logos can be shown on your site because what a CDN does is it basically says that if you are close to this server farm, wherever that is, your information will come in at a specific speed. But if you're significantly further away, unless there is another server farm near you, then that data has a longer distance to travel, which means your site gets slowed down.
Mm,
So, what I like about Squarespace is that it actually houses its own CDN.
mm,
WordPress is just a platform to build on. You require a CDN,
mm.
whether it's internal through like a GoDaddy or whatever your host is, or through like a Cloudflare, right? You do require that. So I think their requirements for WordPress are a little bit more complicated than
Oh,
if
I'd
you just
agree.
kind
I'm
of
a
went
WordPress guy, and my site is a WordPress, but it's so like I've thought about changing, but it's just like I've got so much content and
that's a daunting thought.
so
That's
many
a
pages
daunting.
on my page. I'm like I dug the
There's no
grave
way.
that I mean I've dug the hole that I've dug, and I'm not going to go out of it because it's like
Right.
I mean the amount of time it would take for me to go over and then index things, and I was just like,
Right.
no, I'm
Yeah.
good. I'm doing, but so I guess part of the answer is like wherever you are at, don't start over from scratch unless you really, really have to, I mean, it
I,
depending if you only have 2 or 3 pages, it's easier to start from scratch than if you
right.
have 100 or 1,000 or whatever that might be on your back end.
If you have to start again, then don't get rid of your existing site and you just take it one day at a time, rebuilding things the way you want it to be until you can go live. And then you do the whole migration accordingly. So you basically end up in a mirror almost, right? Where you have two basically redundant sites. One is live, one's not. And then you flip the switch.
Right.
I think there are ways to do it. But anyway, going back to the question on simplicity, I do believe in simplicity. I do think Squarespace is worth a look. I think Wix is worth a look. Um, but ultimately, SEO is not about the capabilities of the
Right.
builder, and rather it's your capability and what you know to put on your site.
Right. Richard, I mean, this has been awesome. We could go forever with this stuff. I
Yeah,
mean,
man.
it's just like we've been going a long time as it is. But thank you so much for being here. If somebody wanted to reach out to you, how would they get a hold of you? I mean, we're going to put this in the show notes, but how could they get a hold of you if they were looking for some help with their SEO and their website?
Sure. You can start by emailing me at info@richardwaine.com. That's info at Richard Waine. Waine is spelled WAINE.com. If you go to my website, which is richardwaine.com, there is a chat widget there, and I promise you that is legitimately me. And the only time I will not answer is when I'm working with a client. And of course, all of my other contact information and socials are certainly listed on that website as well. And I'm sure John will end up taking those links and putting them in the show notes too.
Yeah, we'll put all that stuff in the show notes, but I just want you to know, if you're listening or watching right now, Richard is definitely somebody. If you're needing help with this stuff, reach out to him, have a chat with him, see how he can help you and everything, because he is a wealth of knowledge, as you could hear today. And we've just barely broke the iceberg here of what SEO can do and what it can do for you and your business and all that stuff. So, Richard, again, thank you so much for giving me the time and coming on here. It's always a pleasure speaking with you. You're a wealth of information. I need to have you on again so we can talk about profitability one day, because that's a whole other topic that you're really, really well versed in, and I love about you. And so, thanks again for being on, and I can't wait to have you on again someday soon.
John, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it. And just remember, this stuff isn't sexy, but ringing the cash register is very
It
sexy. And
is
so
very
that's what
much.
it's all about,
There
right?
you go.
That's what
There
it's
you go.
about.
It's all about
Thanks
how to
for,
get people in. How to go.
right. Right.
There
Well,
you go.
thanks so much for having me, John. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for being here, Richard. Talk to you later.
You got it.